you grew up watching The Master. Johnny Carson, and there's wild stuff.
Yeah, Johnny. Johnny was on every night. That's right,
Yes, sir.
Monday through Friday. I started taking more vacations, as I got older. When was the last show? The last show was May. Boy, I think it was May 21st, I want to say May 21st, 1992.
Two.
And I know that because I cut a picture of Johnny Carson out of our local newspaper, the Cleveland Plain Dealer, and I wrote the date on it for some reason, and I still have that in a bin of articles and things. But yeah, Johnny Carson. I think Johnny Carson and Jim Henson and probably Benny Hill and Monty Python.
Wow.
Your
influences, that is the greatest. I've never heard anyone have greater influences than you just said.
It's a lot of weird stuff. And I mean, for sure, though, and I've been realizing this lately, probably at the top of the list, because I just watched all of the box sets of SCTV.
Mm.
And, SCTV for me was the greatest comedy variety show of all time. I mean, this was Eugene Levy and John Candy and Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas.
For those who don't know, a Canadian sketch comedy show.
Canadian sketch. It was sort of like there was SNL and then there was SCTV. But SCTV was so different because it wasn't live and there was a lot more. It was all post-production and there was a lot more production value. And I always found it to be the more interesting show because the premise was they were running a, really crappy cable network called Second City Television, SCTV, and Joe Flaherty played the station manager, Guy Caballero. Hi, I'm Guy Caballero, and he'd be in a wheelchair. He didn't need the wheelchair. I'm in the wheelchair just for sympathy, And John Candy was his sidekick, and Andrea Martin played Edith Prickly. And anyway, it's a great show because basically they would run it like it was a day of programming on a network. So there would be commercials, and they had to make everything. That's the thing. They had to make the commercials. They had to make the bumpers, the movie parodies. Everything was generated by the cast, and it flows so beautifully that I just started to emulate that as a kid when I would record, on my tape recorder. I would just do shows like that. One of the shows was where I ran a radio station and I played all of the characters and did all of the voices, probably in this is 84, maybe 85.
You're like a Wes Anderson film.
Yeah, is that? Yeah, well, I've never heard that before. Yeah, he's better lit. His movies are better lit than mine, but I'm a Wes Anderson film with less pastels and less xylophone music, I think.
Yeah, and in the 80s and whatnot.
Yeah, but
a little less throwback.
Yeah, I think that, and then I had a lot of albums I listened to. Bob and Doug McKenzie, again, Rick Moranis and Dave Thomas played these two kind of Canadian knuckleheads. How's it going, eh? And they had their show Great White North, and that came out of the show needing an extra 3 minutes or so to fill out the running time, I think for the maybe the Canadian version of the show. And so those two sat down and went, okay, we'll just improvise a bunch of these, and they did like 20 of them in a row, and then that became this legendary thing, turned into a movie. But I have the album, and on the Great White North album, there's a script that comes with it, and the segment is called "You Are Our Guest," and you read along. And whenever it's your turn, you reply. So they'll say, "Hey, how's it going, eh?" And then you go, "I'm doing good." That would probably be me at that age. Oh,
very accurate.
Yeah, it's pretty close. Nice to see you. Yeah, good to see you too. So I mean, I would sit there in my room, no brothers or sisters. I would just sit there by myself and talk to my record players, and talk to Bob and Doug McKenzie. So I mean, it's that kind of stuff, and old time radio and the Muppet Show, just all kinds. I think that was like a period where there weren't as many stations, there weren't as many channels, and you just kind of everything was like variety shows. It was the tail end of the variety show era. So variety shows were were big. And late night horror movie shows too. You know, in Cleveland, we had at one time like 5 or 6 late night horror movie hosts. There was Big Chuck and Little John, Frank and Drac, The Ghoul, Ghoulardi, Son of Ghoul. You know, I watched them all. I watched them all, and I loved it. It was, you know, it was the late night horror host, for those who don't know, because they're not really around much anymore. And this is before Mystery Science Theater. This is way back in the day. It was just like someone who just was a curator of crappy horror movies. Usually their set looked kind of like, you know, my office here. And, you know, they'd read letters from, hey, we got a little letter here from Billy Szymanski in Parma Heights. He wants to know what's in the box. Ooh, let's open the box. Ooh, and there'd be like a puppet that would come out or something. Anyway, so these are all the kind of things that were swirling around me and influencing me at the time. And you know, that's kind of how it started.
You said you would watch and you would record voices, and that's how you would emulate them.
Sure,
and I can remember doing the same thing. Dana Carvey's on SNL, and you're trying to get his like knock on that, you know, and doing all the sort of things. Or obviously, my Johnny Carson, I think, and most Johnny Carsons are just Dana Carvey's.
Well, that's kind of what impressions have become or became for quite a while. Just basically was someone's impersonation of another person's impersonation. So when I started like doing the Arnold Schwarzenegger, I really wanted to try to not do the Hans and Franz, you know, because Kevin Nealon and Dana Carvey did the Hans and Franz. Hi, yeah, we want to pump you up, you know, that whole thing. But I really wanted to do Arnold Schwarzenegger, and he talked like this and fantastic. And a little bit hard. First of all, let me say that you don't understand. And then they would do this, and I go there like that because I'm searching for the world, and I don't know what to say, right? So I just wanted to find a way to do a more realistic version. But you know, you're right. I mean, most impressions I think are, you know, and there's a lot of comedy in that. There's a lot of funny to be had in doing an impression that's a little more a caricature or over the top. I mean, people love
and
that.
Dana was sort of the king of that, as he would describe it. When his impressions got great, they broke down to a sound. So they were just like not gonna do, you know, they're just like they you know, they're just sounds, and he knew he mastered them when he hit the sound. I'm curious, you had this Fisher Price recorder, you're recording yourself. I just want to know, do you have the tapes?
I do.
Woodward's looking for the tapes.
Well, he can have them. You know what? It's all there.
Oh, Josh, you have to do something with those tapes. My God.
It's all there. You know, you know, there's a lot of stuff I'd love to put out there on YouTube, or just online. But we'll wait. We'll wait.
Even you listening. Wait, you say that like you have a master plan for them.
Well, some of the stuff, like I think let's say like the public access stuff, like early versions of the Reverend character that I do.
Sure.
No way would I put those online. No way.
But even you going over yourself as a kid doing impressions, and us watching that on YouTube is gold. Do you remember the first impression you did that got a laugh?
I mean, it was probably Johnny Carson.
Really?
Yeah, because I used to call into college radio was a big thing. Cleveland State University still to this day has one of the great college radio stations of all time, WCSB 89.3 FM. They had like three different phone lines. So you kept calling. It was always a busy signal. And eventually I got through and I started doing my retired Johnny Carson. It was around that time when Johnny was about to leave, and I would call in. I was Johnny. I'm just, just sitting here wondering what I'm going to do next. I don't have a lot going on. I'm kind of pissed off. The network got rid of me, you know. So, it was a much younger me doing Johnny Carson.
Right. Were you capable of having that timbre?
No. It was like, this is Johnny Carson.
That's
probably
how
sounded
mine
more
was
like.
When I was like 11, it was like, there's your wacky wild stuff. I didn't know that.
Yeah, so it was like Dana Carvey's. We were all doing our Dana Carvey.
All
basically.
doing Dana Carvey.
Yeah.